A while back, I made a video about the family trauma genre and how the family sitcom changed with the release of Arrested Development. Ever since the show from the early 2000s, comedies have made a grittier spin, which hasn't stopped. We also find drama series following this trend. But what are the fundamentals behind this genre? It's one thing to point out this change, but a whole other step to delve into what defines this genre we've been so fascinated with for decades. What up, you guys? I'm Kent E.S. Larwill, and I'm a writer, YouTuber who talks about everything from philosophy, politics, storytelling, and more. The easiest way to support what I do is to subscribe to this channel and like this video. It's free and takes a second to do. As any writer who's worth his weight in paper knows, good things come in threes. So let's break down the family trauma genre into 3 principles that define it. Principle 1. The family is divisible, not unified, making internal conflict a constant, not episodic. In the family trauma genre, each family member has their own goals separate from the rest of the family, and those goals somehow conflict with other family members. This is why we often find these shows draped in some kind of family business setting, where each family member is fighting over control of the family business. In Arrested Development, the Bluths company is being held together by Michael, while Gob wants to take charge, and Lucille and Lindsay both want to suck funds dry for their own lives of luxury. This family business creates much of the conflict between family members, however it is not always required. Shameless is a good example without a family business, where living in poverty is more the issue that divides the family. Because money is tight and space is tight, and their father is completely neglectful, the family fights over who's looking after who, how are we going to afford this, or how do I even get a break away from the rest of these mongrels. Principle 2. Dysfunction is the point, not a short-lived quib in the show. We will see dysfunction in older sitcoms, but this dysfunction is more a punchline, which is never really explored into much detail. Dysfunction may be a joke or reference, but it always hangs off to the side to be used when it is needed. In a family trauma genre, the dysfunction is placed center stage with every episode for all to see, and it is unavoidable how essential this dysfunction is for understanding the plot of the episode and possibly the theme of the entire series. To put Arrested Development back on the spotlight, dysfunction hits you over the head with a hammer in the first episode, as George neglects his kids, focusing solely on his business. Lucille guilt trips her children for one reason or another. Buster is overmothered. Gob is shallow and insecure. Lindsay is entitled. And Michael is overly controlling in an anxious effort to have control in his life. Each of these character flaws, created by family dynamics, are driving forces which push the narrative in a way that is significantly less relevant in a previous century's sitcom. Principle 3. External problems are made worse by the family's inability to function. There are, of course, still external problems that the family has to face in the family trauma genre. However, due to the family being divisible and the family dysfunction, these external problems are only made more problematic. In earlier sitcoms, the family will often rally together to face the external problem in a heroic or wholesome fashion. This is devoid in the family trauma genre. The family fights over how to solve the problem. The family members may have ulterior motives which cause them to be on opposite sides of the external problem. There may even be a family member or two who are wildcards that don't want the external problem to be resolved one way or another, and instead derail plans so that neither side gets what they want. We see this kind of unraveling all the time in Arrested Development. Michael wants his father to stay in prison and have the courts resolve getting him free, since that is the best for the company. George is fed up with prison life and wants to escape to see his wife, Lucille. But Lucille doesn't much care for her husband anymore, as she is having an affair with George's twin brother, Oscar. Meanwhile, Job wants to take over the company despite having no corporate experience, and Lindsay wants to use the company card for a shopping spree. And Buster, feeling neglected, just wants to jump in the middle of the chaos so he feels like he's part of the conversation. Each family member's goals and personalities are constantly working against solving the external problem every single step of the way. Now that we have an understanding of the family trauma genre and how it functions, let's look at an older sitcom and see if these three principles will define it in the same category. As we'll see, sitcoms from just a decade before Arrested Development don't quite measure up to the formula we've set out. Without family being divisible, without dysfunction taking center stage, without external problems being made worse, older TV shows cannot be considered a part of the family trauma genre. Let's take a look at The Simpsons to help clarify this point. For television, nothing is more defining of the 90s than The Simpsons, not to mention it is still running to this day. This family sitcom has been a staple show for decades, but just because the show is still around today doesn't mean it is a part of the family trauma genre. We'll apply the three concepts to see if it qualifies. Is The Simpsons family divisible, and is internal conflict a constant? For the most part, no. The Simpsons may fight with each other from time to time, but it is not the main focus of the show. We'll usually have a whole episode dedicated to Homer and his struggles at work, or Bart and his struggles at school, Lisa trying to get a boyfriend, or Marge becoming a police officer. In these episodes, one character takes the driver's seat, while the rest of the family is just there as support for comedic relief. In other episodes, the family as a whole may take center stage, but they stay relatively unified on whatever it is they are facing. Even the odd time the Simpsons family members find themselves opposed to one another, we see them resolve these issues by the end of the episode, making these conflicts episodic, not constant. In The Simpsons, is dysfunction the point, or is it a punchline? Dysfunction is most certainly on display in The Simpsons, but it is not the point of the show. Homer choking out Bart is obviously child abuse, but the show never addresses it as trauma that weighs heavily on Bart. Whenever we see Homer reach for Bart's neck, we're already laughing at Homer's frustration and Bart's suffering. The dysfunction is used as a joke, but it's never explored how this may be affecting the character on a deeper level. The same could be said for Homer's alcoholism. Homer is a drunk who takes every chance he gets to crack a cold one, and this often comes with a whole lot of humor added to any given episode. But we never really see how this alcoholism is affecting his family. Again, the show seems to put on display dysfunction funny, but doesn't really go into detail how this dysfunction is affecting the character or the rest of the family. Therefore, this dysfunction is a punchline, not really an underlying theme to the actual stories in the show. Does The Simpsons' inability to function as a family ever make external problems worse? No. In fact, most episodes almost have the opposite sentiment. Family members are almost always helping each other to resolve external conflicts. There may be disagreements and fights along the way, but for the most part, the Simpsons are working together to beat Mr. Burns and his puppy fur racket, or trying to escape spending time with the Bourne Flanders family, or they're all uniting with the town to steal the lemon tree back from Shelbyville. External problems are almost always made easier when the Simpsons come together, which is diametrically opposed to what would happen in a family trauma genre. As we discussed previously, Arrested Development fulfills these three concepts. The Bluth family is divisible, and internal conflict is a constant, as is their dysfunction, put on full display in each episode for the purpose of driving the plot. And finally, the Bluths' inability to function as a family only makes external problems worse. This is what makes Arrested Development part of the family trauma genre, where The Simpsons can be defined as a more traditional styled sitcom. With this separation clarified, we can see how Arrested Development shifted the sitcom genre in some groundbreaking ways which were never done before. But let me know in the comments below if you can think of a show that falls into the family trauma genre that predates Arrested Development. Perhaps I've missed something. Apply the three principles of the family trauma genre and see if it qualifies to fit in that category. Thanks for watching. And if you like that video, then you can check out my book where I talk about that and many other issues that might help you. It's got a title so edgy, I'm not even sure if I can say it on YouTube. So check it out in the description. And as always, if you want, you can like, subscribe, and all that other fun stuff. More videos coming, of course.